Hi, my name is Sophie Sherbin, and today I'm going to talk to you about physician-assisted dying and should terminally ill patients have the right to choose when to end their lives. When do you consider a person dead? Is it when their heart stops beating? Is it when they can no longer breathe? Is it when they no longer have neural activity? Or is it long before all of this, when a terminally ill patient no longer sees any quality to their life? People have differing views on physician-assisted dying, also known as euthanasia. This is when a terminally ill patient or someone with an incurable disease chooses to have a painless death at the time they choose. This can be done through several different medical methods, such as an oral medication or an injection. An arousing question is, should terminally ill patients have this right to choose when they end their lives? Currently, there are 8 states that allow physician-assisted death: California, Colorado, the District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington, D.C. all have what is called a Death with Dignity Act. Oregon was the first to introduce the Death with Dignity Act, which allows terminally ill Oregonians to choose to end their lives through the voluntary self-administration of a lethal dose of medication prescribed by a physician. In a study, Dr. Charles D. Burke analyzed information collected by the Oregon Health Authority on their records for patients prescribed these lethal drugs. The analysis found that between 1998 and 2015, 1,545 patients had death with dignity prescriptions written. 991 of those patients took the medication and later died. This may sound morbid, however, Dr. Burke reported, quote, "It is my experience that the patients I have aided have been grateful to have this option regardless of whether they took the medication or not," end quote. I also note that all states that allow patients to obtain these lethal drugs also require that the patients have a life expectancy of less than 6 months. Patients that take lethal drugs are not cynical towards taking them, but rather grateful for the benefits, and as consumeristic as it may seem, such as ending further medical debt, many of these patients that are terminally ill take daily medications or face surgeries that push their families further and further into debt. Also, not prolonging further emotional and physical stress that accompanies watching a loved one pass away. To understand what this must be like, Karen Wentworth is the second person in Maine to access the Death with Dignity Act. In a written memoir to describe what it was like preparing for death, she writes, "I'm a mother, a partner, a daughter, a sister, a friend, and someone living with terminal cancer. After several traumatic surgeries, my cancer is still with me, but I am no longer afraid of dying in a fog of pain." Here in Vermont, there were a total of 34 events between 2017 and 2019 that met the definition of patient choice at end of life. 71% were due to cancer, like Karen. Advocates for euthanasia see this choice as a great human freedom to be able to live and die by one's own beliefs. However, this raises room for opposition from people from all realms of society, such as doctors, mental health professionals, and religious advocates. Many of them see euthanasia as allowing terminally ill patients, many of whom are already struggling from depression or other mental health issues, to devalue their own life. Taking a stance against euthanasia, a National Institute of Health report explained 4 common arguments against euthanasia, or for what they coin as physician-assisted suicide. First, they state that it devalues human life. Being suicide devalues human life. Next, they say that euthanasia is a slippery slope, meaning that people who have access to these lethal prescriptions will gradually erode over time, and patients who should not give up yet on life will think that it's an easy way out. They also say that they counter the argument that pain can be alleviated through euthanasia because modern medicines and palliative care more and more help patients manage their pain. The last argument they make is that the process of physician integrity and patient trust is violated when a physician takes a patient's life, even with consent. It is evident that many states that do not allow euthanasia see it as suicide. In my own hometown of Detroit, Dr. Jack Kevorkian, nicknamed Dr. Death, assisted in 130 terminally ill patients' euthanasias. He was sentenced 10 to 25 years in prison following his conviction for murder. Opposers of euthanasia do not believe that physicians should be allowed to administer these lethal drugs and do see it as murder. So it's time to ask yourself, when is a patient considered dead? Is it when their heart stops beating? Is it when their brain no longer has neural activity? Or is it long before all bodily functions shut down, when a terminally ill patient no longer sees any quality of life? Should terminally ill patients have the right to choose when they end their suffering?